Boardroom, Chapter 38, Part A, Christmas. Everything seemed to stop on December 25, 26 AD. All the preparations were completed. Even though each side was sure they had not done enough, time had run out. At Evil Inc., the conversation, the energy, the efforts had all gone into this event. Hours and hours of consultation, study, and brain picking had brought a focus to Evil Inc. that had not been there before. There had been reasonable focus in the Line in the Sand episode and also at the Battle of Heaven. No Evil Inc. member could forget the 3 temptations of Eve, or the one who finally seduced her. They also remembered that though Eve had wanted in her heart to have sensual gratification with the serpent, it was in reality something as simple as an apple that brought her down, bringing all future humanity with her. It was eventually decided at Evil Inc. that there would be, just as in Eden, 3 encounters with Junior. And all of them knew that if all 3 failed, they would all be one giant step closer to eventual and final extinction. Though Bells was still the commander-in-chief of Evil Inc., Luke had assumed spiritual and ideologic control. He had not lobbied for such a position, and it was not defined as such. But when questions of morality or policy would arise, Luke would be consulted, and his input by and large was followed. This led to much jealousy and backbiting, particularly between Bells and Luke's supporters. Nap and Jez could usually smooth things over. Ad was known as the most focused of all, and when things would become disorganized, everyone would turn to him for assistance. He would usually deliver. He would do one-on-one, group, and large lecture sessions. He could speak for hours on end and would mesmerize many of the Evil Inc. audiences. He would remind them that they were in a war and needed to carry the fight to the enemy each and every second of each and every day. He would point out that this focus would lead to the members of Evil Inc. all evolving into gods. He backed up this theory by understanding, rightly so, that since the Battle of Heaven had gone from a 5 to a 6, that is, his brain was capable of thinking of 6 different things at once. All angels knew Pops was an infinity, and Luke was the best of Evil Inc. at an 8. But Ad's attitude was so positive it was infectious. All Evil Inc. had high respect for Ad, save Jez, who detested him. His dark green uniform and his little mustache. He always rebuffed her advances, preferring to sleep with 1s and 2s, women she could control. To him and most in Evil Inc., control was by far the greatest turn-on, as opposed to Good Core, where it was all about mutual admiration and respect for one another. It was finally decided after much discussion, bickering, and actual hand-to-hand combat that 3 life areas would be the focal point of this attempt to break Junior. Multiple attempts had been made on Junior throughout his now 30-year life on Earth, but to date he had foiled them all. Evil Inc. had protested on many occasions. They had called into question many of his actions, but repeated and heated meetings with Pops, the ultimate judge, resulted in them being unable to conclusively prove Junior had done anything wrong or evil. Evil Inc.'s objections were always considered, but then overruled each and every time. Deep down, all in Good Core and Evil Inc. knew Junior's record was still intact. Though they all wondered if Junior might have slipped up a time or two, they all knew he had not done anything major, that is, anything deliberately against the policy of Pops. And with each passing year, Junior's actions and resolve were accumulating to the point where the odds of him doing anything wrong were becoming very slim. They all knew Junior's streak was effectively intact. The betting pools to see what date Junior would slip up had constantly been revised, as he had now gone a full 33 years without faltering. The 3 planned encounters were agreed to by all parties and were scheduled for Junior's 30th birthday, December 25, 26 AD. was also mutually decided to have Junior incarcerated for a month prior to the event. Goodcore knew it would be their chance to assist in focusing Junior's mind on his true mission, the saving of mankind, keeping Goodcore alive and on the job, and preserving the entire universe as created and maintained by Pops. For Evil Inc., the month of incarceration was welcomed as a chance to weaken and wear down their opponent, making him more vulnerable, a sitting duck, if you will, to their advances. As it happened, Junior became so depressed by the end of October 26 AD that he took off for the desert on the 15th of November, giving him 40 days to sulk, if you will. Junior had lost his wife and was having difficulty taking care of his two dear children and working full time. He had been away on business, and when he returned, his wife was missing. Junior's mother, Mary, helped him by taking care of the two little ones. His wife had been kidnapped and forced to become a slave prostitute for the Roman army. In a few years, she eventually escaped, but being branded a slave and a prostitute, she had no choice but to continue as a prostitute in order to survive and make ends meet. She eventually turned to opium. Junior made every effort to find his lovely wife, but without success. He then put the care of his two children into his mother's hands and took a little sabbatical from life. He had not contemplated suicide, but now understood why people did. He had nothing left but a small carpentry business left for him by his now dead father. His messianic aspirations were definitely a thing of the past. Now, as a human, he wasn't sure what being the Messiah meant. He had pretty much come to think Caesar was, or Caesars were, the Messiah, depending what reference was used. He didn't put forth much effort to determine which Caesar was which. The big question came up on the 15th of November between Pops and Evil Inc. It was brought up in a meeting as to whether contemplation of suicide was crossing the line of good and evil. The answer was not clarified, but when Junior took leave of absence from his job and home in Nazareth the night of the 15th and headed southeast into the Jordan Valley on foot to spend a weekend to think, his demeanor seemed to change.